Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Trina, the slow roller, and she's on.
That wasn't the best hit, but I might as well just run it out as hard as possible. So I ran it out hard as possible, and when I got on there, I was like, it's all right.
I'd say it was all right because a couple of batters later, Cassie Riley-Bosher ripped a triple down the right field line off the first baseman's glove, and Trina, the J-Train, trucked all the way around from first to score the game's only run. Bama advances to the College World Series with a 1-0 victory over Stanford. Our favorite part of all, watch this, Coach Patrick Murphy running right alongside the J-Train, excited and pumped to get back to OKC.
Once it got in the corner, and I thought their fielder kind of bobbled it once, and I was like, just let's run together. Hope one of us is safe. And
Mark's like, I'll just keep running the ball. I didn't know where it went. I was just going 2 outs. That's all I was doing.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock. Tonight we're enjoying ice cold Pepsi Cola alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm Gary Harris. Coming up tonight is the issue of oversighting in football, something that the SEC is going overboard with. We'll discuss. And the Tide baseball team advances to regional play, but will the postseason train stop there for Alabama? But first, the Crimson Tide softball team opens play in the Women's College World Series on high noon Thursday. The Crimson Tide flew out of Tuscaloosa this afternoon. Now keep in mind, the Bama program has only been in existence for 15 years, and this will be the Tide's 7th trip to the Women's College World Series. Of course, in their previous 6 trips, they're 0-6 in Game 1s. Patrick Murphy is hoping number 7 does indeed turn out to be the Tide's lucky number.
Oh, I think they're really fired up. I think, getting to the World Series, the hardest part is those 3 games in regionals and then the 3 games in super regionals. That's the most difficult, nerve-wracking, stressful situation. And then once you accomplish that, now the fun begins. And I think they're all fired up, ready to go.
As I mentioned, Alabama will play the very first game of the WCWS on Thursday at noon. The Tide, as I mentioned, never won their first game in Oklahoma City. That's critical. They're taking on a very good Cal team, though. Cal knocked off Kentucky in Lexington in the Super Regional. They've got a great pitcher, but Alabama coach Patrick Murphy just wants his team to be focused 100%.
You don't want them to, get that pressure right away. It's a key. And, we need to do it. But, and Cal's a very good opponent, and they got a really good pitcher. So it's something that we need to do, and I think if we finally get that done, you'll see the real Alabama team at the World Series. And
I bring Rodney Orr in now, and that really is the key. 6 trips, 0-6 in that Game 1. You fall right into the loser's bracket. It's so tough. Now, Alabama's fallen out a couple of times and really had a chance. But still, let's be honest. Coach Patrick Murphy knows it. The players know it, regardless of the opponent. And Cal's very good. Alabama's very good, too. They've been a number 1 national seed. They're the number 2 national seed. If they're going to win this championship, they need to break through and win Game 1. It's as simple as that, right?
Well, I think sometimes, Gary, it becomes a mental thing, psychological, but not only that, I mean, let's be honest, as you mentioned, when you lose that first game, your back's to the wall. You don't have any margin for error. It puts a lot of pressure on you. We saw them a couple of years ago when they fought back and, almost won almost won the national championship, had not been for that grand slam by the Florida Gators. But, again, it puts your back at the wall. So certainly I think this game is key. And, playing a Pac-10 team, again, those teams are very talented.
Yeah, but they got past Stanford in a gutsy super regional. And I like what Coach Murphy said. If we win that first game, I think you'll see the real Alabama, meaning I think they'll relax. They'll feel like they got over the hump. I'm going to go out on a limb. Winning that first game is not going to be easy. But if they do, right now I'm picking them to win it all. Well, I think that will just give them the rocket fuel they need to take the whole thing.
Maybe so, but his comment tells you how important that first game is. I mean, certainly, again, sometimes you get tight in a situation like that when you've had a history of losing those games 0-6, as you mentioned. So certainly I think this is something they want to get off their backs.
Yeah, going to be a lot of fun. Of course, we'll have it covered here for you on WVUA beginning Thursday at noon against Cal. Well, meanwhile, the Alabama baseball team is set to begin their NCAA tournament this Friday. Alabama found out on Monday they'll be the number 3 seed in the Tallahassee Regional. They'll open play Friday at 11 a.m. against Central Florida. And if they win, they would move on to play the winner of the Florida State Bethune-Cookman game, and we're guessing that obviously is going to be FSU. Coach Mitch Gaspard feels like his team is prepared for anything that might come up against them down in Tallahassee.
The great thing for us, the SEC is definitely the toughest, college baseball league in the country, and I think it prepares you for these regional type opportunities. And there's really nowhere you can go in the country where you're going to be intimidated. I think our guys are going to be very comfortable to go into that ballpark, and I think we'll play really well this weekend.
It's a grind all year in the SEC. I mean, everybody's good. Everybody plays hard. Everybody plays the game the right way. And so when you get into postseason, there's nothing you really haven't played, and you're not going to play any teams better than what you've played, because this is the best baseball in the nation. So it gives us, I guess, an edge going in, because we've played against the best. We know how we have to play against them if we want to win.
Now, obviously, right now, Alabama's a long shot there. Florida State's the heavy favorite at home. Great fan support there. Central Florida, the Tide's first opponent, very good as well. But let's keep this in mind. Alabama's a 3 seed this year in the regional. Last year they were a 2 seed, but they went into Atlanta against a really strong Georgia Tech team last year and won that regional. So, the thing about a tournament like this is Alabama doesn't have a lot of pitching depth, but they've got some really good starters at the front end with Kilcrease and Morgan, Jonathan Smart out of the bullpen. So if they win a game or two, they could be a factor again this year. It's not beyond belief that they could go down there to Tallahassee and win, although certainly they're an underdog.
Well, and again, you've sensed a little bit of confidence, at least from the standpoint of the competition they faced this year. Certainly they've gone against some of the best teams in the country. So just here in the SEC.
Yeah, they won't be intimidated.
Right.
No doubt about that. And again, Alabama struggles offensively. If they can get runs early, like they did against Arkansas in that first game of the SEC tournament, then they can relax and play from ahead. But this is a team not built to come from behind. They just don't have the offense, and they don't have the ability to hit the long ball. Plus, they're not a great base running team. So if they get behind early, they're in trouble. But if they could get 3 or 4 runs, get a lead with Kilcrease on the hill in that game 1, anything could happen. Well, still to come on Titv, Rodney will have his weekly football recruiting update. You always want to stay tuned for that. Is another quarterback prospect that we haven't talked about now on Alabama's radar. Rodney will have the latest. But up next, there are several hot-button issues up for discussion at this week's SEC meetings in beautiful Destin, Florida. How could they possibly impact the Alabama football team specifically? We'll have information on that. Plus, we'll take your phone calls and get to your emails as well. 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882 is the phone number to jot down, or you can email us at the address on your screen. Stay tuned, because you're watching the one and only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock. Tider Insider TV continues now on this final day of May the 31st, 2011. Well, the SEC is holding its annual spring meetings down in Destin this week. They got underway today. And for football, one of the biggest issues on the table is oversigning. Now, right now, the SEC schools are allowed to sign up to 28 players, but they're talking about dropping that down to a maximum of 25. And Rodney, we've heard a lot about this when Coach Saban first got here. He signed, I think, his first class right around maybe 30. And other schools have done it as well, and I don't see a big issue with it. The bottom line is you can't bring in more than 25 on scholarship in any calendar year. The numbers usually work themselves out. Let's be clear on this. There are 8 football coaches that are for the 28 limit, all 6 in the West, plus Steve Spurrier and Derek Dooley. The 4 coaches against it. Muschamp, because he has to be because of his school president. Matching down there is the one that raised a big stink about it. The coaches at Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Mark Richt at Georgia. Your thoughts? I don't think it's going to pass. I think it'll stay at 28, and I think it should, to be honest with you.
I mean, I don't understand. I really don't. We've talked about this over and over again. I don't understand the big deal. I mean, it's an agreement up front. Everyone knows where they stand. The prospect knows where they stand. For instance, if Alabama signs 3 over, certainly those guys that don't report in August, they know the reason. They know the possibilities that, for the reasoning why they may not make it at that point. So I don't think anyone's lied to. We've talked about it before. There have been guys signing this program before Nick Saban in a similar situation. We talked about Drew Davis. Remember him?
Very well.
John Parker Wilson.
Yeah.
He wanted to be a part of the class. John Parker Wilson could have gone to other schools. Could have gone to Tennessee. Could have gone to Ole Miss.
Let's see how it worked out for John Parker Wilson. He won he won a SEC West Division championship, played an SEC championship game, graduated, and is in the NFL.
Well, and he would not have been able to come to Alabama.
That's what I'm saying.
So, yeah, so they gray shirted. They signed him. Yeah, absolutely. And look at we mentioned Drew Davis.
Yeah.
Here's a guy that not only did he gray shirt that first year, Gary, but he redshirted his next year. He was from a small school. It allowed him an opportunity to develop and fulfill his dream of playing for Alabama, and he ends up winning a national championship.
Well, I think it's going to stay at 28, but we know that there are some who would like to knock it down to 25. One other thing they're going to be discussing, and first of all, I'm clear on this issue, as clear as you are on that one. I think a scholarship, McGrant and aid, is worth a lot more than people give it credit for. You have a chance to get a free education at a major institution, plus the credibility that it builds for you going forward in your life to have played SEC football. I'm not a big fan of paying players, certainly not what Jim Delaney has suggested in the Big Ten, that they need to be flat out paid, but there is going to be talk in the SEC meetings this week about more money for living expenses. That I don't have a problem with.
Well, apparently they're already paid flat out in the Big Ten, huh?
Yeah, according to some. But, if they want to increase the living expenses money in terms of giving them money to go to the movies and do things like that, I don't really have a problem with that. That's something else that's on the table. And good shot there at the Big Ten and other places, too, from what we understand. Well, still to come, we'll talk about an issue up for discussion that affects SEC men's basketball. Could divisional play soon come to an end? We'll have the latest on that. Plus, as I said, we'll get to your phone calls and emails. Tider Insider TV, right here on WVUA TV. We're coming right back. Stay with us. Gary Harris, Rodney Orr, back with you on Tider Insider TV. Time to talk football recruiting, Rodney. We got some interesting updates, and we want to start with a quarterback. Now, we know Alabama's probably going to sign 2 this year in this class, but suddenly a kid from Coffee County High School in Douglas, Georgia, we haven't talked much about him, but you look at the measurables with Will Gardner, 6'5", 210, and you're reporting on your website that he says he has an Alabama offer.
Well, I know what, Gary, I think there's a good chance he's going to definitely get a firm offer when he comes to camp. But he is a talented kid. I talked to his coach back a year ago about it. We knew he was an outstanding prospect at that point, and he's really starting to develop, Gary, and I think that, keep an eye on him, because I think if he has a good camp at Alabama, he could become a factor, because I know that a lot of people really like him a lot. And again, we've talked about Gunnar Kiel. I still believe Alabama's in really good shape with Gunnar Kiel. Of course, Jameis Winston as well. So we'll see who Alabama ends up getting in quarterback spot.
Probably nobody in the country recruits defensive linemen any harder than Alabama, and they go all over the country to do it. Interesting prospect in the state of Texas. Lago Vista right there next to Austin. Donald Hopkins, you look at the size, they went into Houston and got Damian Square about the same size as this kid. Talk about Donald Hopkins. Does he have an Alabama offer, and what's the situation in the latest with this athletic defensive lineman?
Yes, he does, and great first step. Gary plays nose tackle in high school, probably get bigger. You're talking about a 300-plus pound kid with that. He's got a great first step, and again, Alabama offered him. That's his best offer by far to date. Missouri's offered him now. Since Alabama's offered him, since Nick Saban's offered him, Texas has suddenly become interested. So, we'll see what happens with him. But he's going to visit here on June the 12th through the 14th with his high school coach again. He is a great kid and an outstanding prospect as well. Originally from Oakland, California, by the way.
Now, a young man that you've been following for some time on your site, TJ Davis, the quarterback out of Tallahassee. Alabama has been consistent with him the entire process. Plays for Ronnie Cottrell down there at Gabby High School. What's the latest on TJ?
Well, TJ, again, you mentioned, Gary, what an outstanding prospect he has. He has offers to Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Florida State, Miami. Tons of offers from around the country, and one of the top corners. Right now, my understanding is, talking to some people close to the Godby program, is Alabama and LSU are his top 2. And again, let's remember that Alabama's in on a lot of top-notch prospects. You can't take them all, but he's certainly a guy that to keep an eye on.
Now, that's our recruiting update for this week. Of course, if you've got a recruiting question involving another prospect, you can give us a call, 205-348-WVUA. Speaking of phone calls, we got a couple people holding right now. Let's start it off with Joseph in Tuscaloosa. Joseph, welcome into the program.
Hey, what's up, Gary, Rodney? How y'all doing today?
Doing well, Joseph.
Hey, say, man, but now, peep this out. Now, what happened out there in Columbus, Ohio, by Jim Tressel? Now, I heard that they might have some decommitment, from for Ohio State due to the fact that Tressel was gone. So you think there's a possibility? You think there's a possibility some of these commitments might come here?
Well, Joseph, first of all, who in particular are you curious about that they have committed? Do you have anybody in particular? Or you just want me to talk about anyone that's maybe being recruited by Ohio State?
Go ahead,
Okay.
Ronnie. Just
Well,
anybody that Ohio State and Alabama that are both
right.
recruiting that could be impacted by Tressel's resignation.
Yeah, and he said commitments, but I want to talk about Adolphus Washington. We talked about him last week, a tremendous defensive end prospect. A lot of people thought he was locked up for Ohio State. We kind of talked about that last week where he's open to Alabama. He's a cousin of Alfred McCullough, who is an offensive lineman here at Alabama. He has a teammate named Dwayne Stanford. He's one of the top wide receivers in the country. Again, these guys have offers from everybody. I think, Joseph, when you look at those two guys, certainly that would only enhance Alabama's chances, you would think. And they already have a very high interest in Alabama. Again, you know, Alabama can't take them all. I don't know where those two would stand on Alabama's board, but I know they're certainly outstanding prospects. And in most years, any school would love to have them.
All right, Joseph, hope that helped you out. Let's talk with J.K. in Tuscaloosa. J.K., welcome in.
Hey, thank you, guys. Roll Tide.
Yes, sir.
Well, you kind of stole my thunder. I was going to ask about Adolphus Washington, and is he in a package deal with his teammate? But let me shift gears and ask you when we might expect Trevor Lacey on campus.
All right, as far as Washington, I'll go ahead, Rodney. Is it contingent on taking his teammate and signing him?
Well, first of all, they're both outstanding. They're outstanding players. They're individually.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not certainly you have to take one to get the other one by any means. But you know, I think maybe they would like to go together, but it's certainly not a prerequisite that they have to go together.
As far as Trevor Lacey's concerned, J.K., I don't know, because first thing, he's going to have to be, cleared by the clearinghouse and going to have to be academically eligible before he can report and enroll at the University of Alabama. But I would say just as soon as that happens, you can expect him to be on campus, along with most of the other basketball signees as well. Let's go over to Bessemer and talk with John. John, welcome in. How are you?
Hi, man. What's going on, Roll Tide?
All right, John, go ahead.
Hey, man, I want to know how our defense, how good it's going to be this year, man.
Well, it ought to be good. I mean, you always have to wait and see. But Rodney, all the pieces are there. A lot of guys back from last year. Of course, you do lose a dominant defensive lineman in Marcel Darius, and those are hard to replace. But there's a lot of size, speed, and athleticism on that defense, and that usually leads you to be pretty good.
Well, and it does, Gary. But, when you look at it from last year, the big difference is the experience factor. You've got guys now that I think are ready to step up in leadership roles. Dante Hightower was still trying to recover from that knee injury, regain some confidence. Courtney Upshaw's now a year older, a lot more confident. He's healthy, or hopefully will be healthy, certainly when the season gets to rolling around. You got Dre Kirkpatrick. Suddenly he's grown up. Dee Milliner was only a true freshman last year. You look at him, he's already mature. And you've got Mark Barron back. And so, Gary, you've got a lot of leadership. And you look at Robert Lester. We don't talk about him that much. What do you have, 8 interceptions last year? I mean, so again, last year this time he was a question mark. So you've got a lot of leadership that's developing, and that's a very key, and the experience in Nick Saban's defense, I think that will pay big dividends versus last year, the inexperience.
All right, let's take some more phone calls when we come back. Lines are open, so now would be an excellent opportunity for you to call in and get through. 205-348-9882 is the number, or you can drop us an email as well. 205-348-WVUA. Call now. Get in on questions and comments here on Tider Insider TV. We'll be back after this. All right, we talked about early in the show the basketball division situation on the agenda today, or on the agenda this week at the SEC meetings down in Destin. A lot of the folks in the SEC would like to do away with them. I'm for the divisions. I like it the way it is. Last year the East was stronger than the West, but I think it's cyclical. I think it goes around. And plus, if you're going to have them divisions in baseball and football, I think you should have it in basketball. I mean, last year the West was stronger than the East in football, but I didn't hear anybody saying that South Carolina shouldn't have been in the SEC championship game against Auburn. So, I mean, that's just the way it works out. I think there's a chance they may do away with the divisions. They don't have them in women's basketball, but I personally like them. But we will see what happens. Hey, our phone lines are full, so let's get these calls in. Jerry is first up. Jerry, welcome to the program.
Hey, guys. Y'all doing okay?
Yes, sir.
Rodney just wants to know what kind of shape we're in with the kid from Hueytown, Winston. Are we in good shape with him?
Yeah, Jerry, I think Alabama's in really good shape. I think Jameis Winston's liked Alabama for quite some time. Florida State is a team that's in the mix. Again, they have a lot of quarterbacks on scholarship. I know he understands that. People talk about LSU. I'm really not sure LSU is as much of a factor as some people think. Auburn, they've recruited him. They've tried to get in there. I think, they would certainly be an option for him. Baseball, he's a tremendous baseball prospect, Gary. You know, we'll see what happens in that regard, but we won't know until the summer of 2012 when the draft comes around. But there's a possibility he could come here, sit out a year and play baseball here, kind of get his feet wet. There's a possibility he could, you know, go minor league baseball, not play college football and come back later, you know, if it didn't work out. So there's so many options for him, but again, that's a long way off. As far as, you know, Alabama, they're in good shape.
All right, thanks for the phone call. Let's go to Jasper and talk with Jimmy. Jimmy, welcome in.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, Jimmy.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out what's the status on Robbie Green. Is he done in Alabama? Because at one time he was a good defensive player.
Well, he is a good defensive player, Jimmy. No doubt about his ability. But there are certain things you got to do to be on a part of a football team, especially at a place like Alabama. Answer to your question is I don't know. I don't know that anybody knows for sure yet. There's a chance he could be back, but you know, he's got some strikes against him.
Well, and again, he's in a situation now where, you know, you've got some guys that have developed through the spring, have gone through spring practice. You have some young guys. I know that were injured, Jarek Williams, Nick Perry, but also Robert Lester emerged last year. And, you know, there's so many guys back there now, Gary. The competition's not what it was when, you know, just last year, what it could have been. He had a great opportunity. All
right, we'll see what happens with Robbie Green. Real quickly, David and Gadsden. Go ahead, David. Well, he's gone. I want to know what happened to Albert Bell. Fine receiver in the mid-'80s with Mike Shula. I don't know. I don't know what he's doing now.
Well, Albert Bell, as you mentioned, what a tremendous junior college player. What an impact he made in that '85 season. You remember the Georgia game, the season opener? You know who he originally signed with out of high school? He's from L.A. Crenshaw.
I want to say maybe Arizona?
Purdue.
Purdue, okay. Well, he wound up at Alabama, was a good player. We'll see if we can find out where Albert Bell is now, and if we do, we'll pass that along. All right, we'll be back right after this. You hungry, Rodney?
Yeah, where are we going?
Well, we're going to Buddy's tonight, so we won't be hungry for long. Buddy's Rib and Steak in North Port's dinner time. Join us there. We've been having a lot of folks at our table. Look forward to seeing you. And as we leave you tonight, a softball tradition at the University of Alabama. You know, when the team goes to the World Series, the freshmen get the old pie in the face. I don't think they mind too much. This was yesterday out at the UA softball complex. Good luck to the Tide in their quest to win the WCWS. For Rodney, I'm Gary. Good night, babe.